Hi guys, in this video I'm going to show you how I got almost 100 of these guys from here to here.
Scruffy Crow.
Okay, so let's get started. The majority of these models are silver, so I start quite simply with any old tatty brush and one of my favourite paints ever made, P3's Pig Iron. I'm going to go straight from the pot here. And basically, I'm going to cover more or less the entire thing. So we want the spear tip to have a nice even coat, and then all the chainmail, armour plates. And I'm not going for a dry brush here, I'm trying to get into all the cracks and nooks and crannies on any of the armour pieces. I'm not going out of my way to paint things right now that aren't going to be silver in the end model, but I'm also not making any particular effort to avoid them. There we go. So remember, all the way through, I've never painted one of these on its own. The Spearmen, for instance, I painted 20 all at once. So when I do these stages, normally I'd be doing that 20 times. So keep that in mind. The next stage is another one of my favourite paints. This is Greatcoat Grey, also by P3. And once again, I'm going to go straight out of the pot. And on this model, it's just going to be the front of his sort of tunic under his armour here. Tiny little square. And then this sort of cowl. So in between his helmet and his armour. Okay, nice and simple like that. So this has had a minute or two just to dry off. And normally for this stage I'd use Null Oil. This is actually Army Painter's Dark Tone. It might actually have a little bit of Null Oil mixed in with it. And then I'm just going to slap this all over anything we've painted. So paying special attention to this spearhead, special attention to underneath the edge of this cowl, and get into all the armour bits. Once again, straight out of the pot. This is all done for speed. And we're just trying to take the initial shine off that metal, and it brings out some of the details here. I specifically want to bring out edges like on the edge of his helmet here, and the difference between the edge of the chainmail, stuff like that, little bits and pieces. So yeah. So when I'm doing a whole unit of these, this is the stage that I try and get them to by the end of a day. So I'll try and get 15 or 20 of these guys to this stage from the first paint session. So I will leave him for a couple of hours for all that to completely dry. Okay, now my black wash is dried. I'm blocking out in my brown colours. So the knife and handle and his little pouch have been done in XV88. And the spear and his face, so any wooden bits, so including the crossbows, have been done in this P3 and flesh, which I have basically ran out of. I'm just trying to use the watery remnants of, but this is now more water than paint in there. And due to the lockdown, I've not been able to get any more. There is some on order, but the order's held up. Now I'm going to switch to one of these cheapo brushes, because I'm going to do some metallics. We're going to do the hilt on the knife and his little head spike. And that's it for gold on this one. Now I've got some Xandri dust, and I'm just going to do some straight lines down the spear. And we're trying not to make them touch, but they don't have to be straight. And that's the sort of general effect we're going for. It doesn't have to be super neat, we're just trying to give the effect of a bit of texture there. And that's pretty much all of my sort of main stage 2 done. Do you know what, after having painted almost 100 of these, you'd have thought I'd remember the steps. Before I put that wash on, one of the other things that I've been doing is the boots in a aptly named bootstrap leather. I was doing a couple of stages for the boots, but I actually found out just this and a wash was giving such a similar effect that it wasn't worth the time. Because I find a lot of what batch painting is about is making time savings where you can. Because yeah, you might only save a few seconds per model, but if you are painting a batch of 20, you're actually saving quite a lot of time. I'm going to let all these bits dry, and anything I just painted, so the pouches, the spear, and the helmet spike, I'm going to go over with a brown wash, everyone's favourite Agrix Earthshade. Paying special attention again to make sure I get the triangle on the helmet. I'll also put a little bit of this just around the edge of the face. And this is the only sort of shading some of these parts will get, like the pouch and the dagger. It also blends together any of the wood effect that I tried. Okay, super quick little stage. We've got some Midland flesh. And these guys have barely got faces at all. So we're just going to put this on the nose, this lip here, get into the cheeks. And then once that's dry, we just need a dab of Reikland Flesh Shade. Now for one of the most fun bits. We've got some Quicksilver P3 again. And I'm going to use this and we're going to mark out the edges of the armour. Another advantage of doing these in bulk is that once you've done one, you kind of learn where all those edges are and you can go and pick them up much quicker. I'm also going to do a super light little dry brush on the centre of any of the chainmail parts. Just like that, and that'll just pull those out. I'm also just going to highlight up the point on the helmet there. Next I'm going to do one of the most fun bits. This is McCrag Blue, and we're going to go, and we're just going to do these borders on the male. So starting from his beard. And this honestly makes all the difference to the model. I feel like this little splash of colour brings it from fairly sort of a drab model to something with a bit of life, gives it that kind of fantasy vibe. So yeah, this is my favourite stage, especially when you've got a unit sat there looking kind of plain, and then 5 minutes later you've got a unit sat there starting to look a bit fancy. Another advantage of batch painting is things like right now I'm waiting for the wash on the face to dry before I can do any more on that. Obviously if I was doing 20 at a time, by the time I'd finish painting, doing the wash on the last one, I'd be ready to start again on the next one. Next we're going in with a little tiny dab of black, and we're going to try and get his eyes and eye sockets. Then we'll fix that with a bit of this eM4 white highlight, sort of an off-white. You want a good brush for this. Dab, dab, and there you've got some eyes. Not the neatest thing in the world, and quite a small detail to put into a model like this, but the cumulative effect of having them all with their eyes painted in, I think, once again, is worth the time. Okay, so now it's time to bust out my crude approximation of a wet palette. I'm going to go back with a bit of the Greatcoat Grey. So this is what we used on the cowl, the bottom of the tunic, and we're just going to give it a little dab of this off-white, just something to line it up a little bit. And this is just going to be applied sparingly, just to pick out that, and then just on this edge. It's a bit too light actually. I use a wet palette to mix this because when I mix a bit of this up now, it'll give me enough time on the palette to work with it to get the whole unit done. And there's just enough to give it a bit of variation on the grey without it being too flat. Next it's the blue again that we use on the trim, this time with a bit of pure white, and we're just going to edge highlight this out. So I'm trying to do a line down the bottom and the top, but occasionally they end up merging together a little bit. But as long as you've got a bit of variation in this, in the shades, I think it just enough to make it pop a little bit. Once again, we forgot a stage because I'm only doing one at a time. While we were highlighting up all of the chainmail and doing the other edge highlighting, I would normally do the spear, so that's missing. So just a line down the centre there, line down the centre, neat as we can, and then on the edges, and maybe a little bit of wear on the end there. I think we're now at a stage where the general painting of the dwarf is basically done. So I used a few different beard colours. I used the Avalon Sunset, or the Zandri Dust, or sort of Rhinox Hide, so just a chocolatey brown, or even black. The brown I washed with black, the black I dry brushed with some grey, and these two I gave a little bit of a soft tone wash to. So I'm going to do this guy in the Zandri Dust. So what I do at this stage, when I'm doing a batch, is I'll split them up into different groups. I used to use the Mephiston Red as well, actually, and then that gets a soft tone wash as well. So yeah, so I split them up into small groups of which ones are going to get which colours. Basically just smaller batches for batch painting. So the beards are another big part of these models that really change the way the whole model looks. So I love painting the beards as well. Just wait for that for dry. Cool, so the beard's dry. We're just going to throw on a bit of this army paint in a soft tone. There we go, it just gives us that shadow under the moustache and brings out all the separate hairs. And yeah, that's pretty much another done dwarf. So the final finishing touch, just going to get my little handy drill. Widen the end of that out a bit, tiny dab of glue, and voila, my final finishing touch. And so this is how I painted, yeah, almost 100 of these dwarves. All the different methods that I've used were all sort of developed just to make it quicker and easier to paint them in bulk. This sort of style of painting, sort of most layers have only had one colour, one highlight, or one colour, one wash. But I still think you could end up with quite an effective end product, and it's very quick to do. So sadly, yeah, that's the last eM4 unit. So this whole project's coming to a bit of a close. Watch out for how I made the shields, that'll be in my next video, and they were quite fun to do. And that's all for this video. Please let me know what you thought down in the comments, maybe subscribe for more, and as ever, thanks for watching, bye!